There is a question which every system of planning must answer, a question so simple that it destroys the illusion at the center of the planner's dream. The question is, who will plan? Not what will be planned, not how much will be planned, but who will hold the authority to decide the plan for everyone else. Because the moment society accepts planning, it has already accepted something deeper, that some group of men must be given power over the lives of others. And Hayek's argument in Chapter 8 is that this question, who will plan, cannot be avoided. It is the political and moral core of the entire issue. Hayek begins with a simple reality. A plan is not an abstract thing. A plan is a decision. To plan an economy is to decide what will be produced, what will be consumed, what will be sacrificed, what will be prioritized. And because resources are limited, every plan involves trade-offs. Every plan involves exclusion. The plan is to choose, and to choose is to impose values. So the idea that planning is merely technical, merely economic management, is a mistake. Planning is moral. Planning is political. Planning is the exercise of authority. There is no general will. Hayek attacks the illusion that planning can express the will of society, because society does not possess one single set of values. People disagree. They want different things. They hold different priorities. They have different visions of the good life. So Hayek says, the planner cannot represent everyone. The planner must choose between competing ends. And therefore, the plan cannot be neutral. The plan must become the plan of some particular group. And that means planning is not the rule or will of the people. It is the rule of those who claim the right to decide for the people. The planner must have power. Once planning is accepted, the next step is inevitable. The planners must be given coercive authority. Because voluntary cooperation is not enough. People will not always comply. They will resist. They will disagree. They will attempt to pursue their own ends. So the plan must be enforced. And enforcement means control over employment, control over production, control over property, control over movement, control over speech, eventually. Hayek's point is that planning is not simply an economic program, it is a structure of power. And power does not remain limited, power expands. Why the best do not rise. Here Hayek introduces one of the darkest insights in the entire book, that the people most suited to unlimited power are not usually the best, because the planner requires a certain kind of personality, a willingness to impose, a willingness to override, a willingness to crush resistance. And Hayek argues, in systems of central control, the gentle do not rise, the cautious do not rise, the morally scrupulous do not rise. Those who rise are those who can command, those who can manipulate, those who can simplify, those who can promise certainty. Planning selects for a type, not wisdom, not virtue, but ruthlessness. The need for unifying belief. Hayek continues, a dictatorship cannot govern purely through force. It must secure mass obedience. And obedience requires belief, a unifying doctrine, a single narrative. But if society remains morally plural, the plan collapses. So the planners must create unity, and unity requires propaganda, education under control, the shaping of values, the elimination of competing loyalties. The plan must become not only economic, but spiritual. The state becomes the source of meaning. Why the plan requires enemies. Hayek makes another sharp observation. Central planning thrives on opposition. Because nothing unifies like conflict. Nothing dissolves dissent like emergency. Nothing grants legitimacy like an enemy. And we do not have to stay in the 20th century to see this. We have watched the same mechanism operate in our own time. Think of 9/11. America experienced a moment of profound unity. Fear dissolved division. Emergency dissolved dissent. The language of security became absolute. And under that atmosphere, extraordinary expansions of state power become possible. The Patriot Act, new surveillance authorities, new security bureaucracies, wars justified as permanent defense. Whatever one thinks of the intentions, the structure is unmistakable. A society frightened by an enemy will surrender liberties it would never surrender in normal times. And the emergency becomes self-perpetuating, because once power expands under crisis, it rarely contracts when the crisis fades. Hayek's point is not about one event, it is about the logic. Planning requires unity. Unity requires discipline. Discipline is easiest under threat. And so the enemy becomes political fuel. So the planned society becomes a society of mobilization, always justifying itself, always rationalizing control, always explaining sacrifice. And the state becomes permanent management, permanent direction, permanent necessity. At the deepest level, Hayek is describing a moral inversion. In a free society, the individual conscience is primary. The law is limited. The state is restrained. But in a planned society, the plan becomes supreme, and morality becomes obedience. Good becomes whatever serves the plan. Evil becomes whatever resists it. Truth becomes instrumental. Language becomes political. And human beings become functions, not persons. So chapter 8 ends where it began, with the unavoidable question, who will plan? But the dream of planning is not the dream of a neutral system. It is the dream of authority. And once authority is accepted, the road is opened, step by step, emergency by emergency, justification by justification, until freedom becomes permission, and life becomes allocation, and the human person becomes a unit in a design. Hayek's warning is not that planners are monsters. His warning is that planning requires monsters, not at the beginning, but at the end. And the question is whether a civilization understands that before it is too late. Next chapter, Hayek turns to one of the most frightening transformations of all, how planning reshapes truth itself, how propaganda becomes necessary, how language becomes an instrument of power. In chapter 9, Security and Freedom. If you found this valuable, please like and subscribe. This series is a chapter-by-chapter journey through the road to serfdom, and what Hayek still warns us about today. Thank you for watching.